And now, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, right in front of you to present on the topic of building trust in high-velocity digital economy, please help me welcome with a big round of applause our next presenter, Mr. Anurag Anand, the Head of Fraud Solutions from TransUnion INDAS. A big round of applause to Mr. Anand. Welcome to the stage, sir, and looking forward to a great session from you.
Sure. Hey, hi everyone. Very good morning to all of you. Thanks for joining us so early in the morning. Today's discussion that we want to do is very specifically focused on the conjecture that where we are in India right now. We are talking about a high velocity digital economy and what does it manifest into from a trust perspective. That is the topic of discussion today. What do we mean by a digital economy? So in India, what we have seen so far, we cross 3 billion UPI transactions a month kind of a velocity. What does it manifest into? It manifests into 1,000 transactions a second. Just imagine those kind of volumes. These are volumes that are unheard of in India. In the whole wide world as well, these numbers are unheard of. This is what we are talking about. This is the ramification of the kind of digital peak that we have seen. Other fact numbers, we open close to 20 crore digital accounts. This could be a liability account, this could be an asset account in an average year. This population or this number is greater than the population of all the countries on an individual basis other than possibly the top 7 or most populous countries. This is the volume, this is the number that we are talking about right now, okay? What it manifests into, we are looking at these numbers. These numbers are something that is available in public forum across different places. It manifests into a very serious concern from a fraud perspective. We are talking about huge spikes in fraud reported cases, which we are seeing time and again getting pushed across at the top. All of this has been happening from 2015 onwards, and this is the way the digital economy has changed. Feature phones used to dominate long way back. UPI came in, the volume started picking up. We saw a very big boom with BNPL, digital lending coming into picture. Deepfake came in, okay? Now we are talking about, in this entire economy, how we bring about a real-time trust concept, okay? Another factor that you would see is 52% of global bot attacks, and this would be a common theme across my entire discussion as well. Bot attacks are originating by widely used AI platforms. Using those, we are seeing a lot of active attacks. Now coming into at the very bottom, every data point that we are going to talk about in today's discussion, it paints a grim picture, but it is also a new trust opportunity. How do you captivate on it? How do you work on it? Is something that will define how we are going to get it to the next stage. Couple of problem statements that we have seen. Why this amount of digital economy? Why this amount of changes that we are seeing? Why the trust imperative is becoming simple, complex, and so on. Synthetic identities, one of the big use cases where you can use fragments of data across various entities and create a disjointed identity. That is becoming common. And with the usage of AI, it is just manifesting into multiple layers, okay? Device spoofing, emulators, bot attacks, organized fraud rings, all of these are things that you hear on a day-to-day basis across the newspaper, across media channels, all of that is available. Basically, traditional KYC, as we used to see it, is no longer efficient enough to mitigate this trust deficit that we are seeing, okay? What does it manifest into if we do not help solve this problem? The first and foremost, revenue loss, almost immediate. It would hit your top line, it would hit your bottom line within a month. What does it mean from a customer perspective? If the customer faces a negative reaction anywhere in your entire ecosystem, okay? Typical chances, the industry recommended, the industry guided pattern is within 30 days, you are going to see a churn in the customer. Okay. What does it mean from a regulatory perspective? Typically a 3, 6, 9, 12 months kind of an audit that typically happens. This would get flagged off. This would need to be resolved from a regulator's lens as well. What does it mean for the brand? Brand typically suffers from any such kind of negative reports that you see for a period of 3 to 5 years. That gets as a blemish on your entire name. So this is what we see if this trust promise is broken across the place. Something that we talked about in just a little while ago, there are multiple layers to how to defend, how to protect the trust factor. Identity used to be the single most biggest layer, but because of the evolution of digital economy, the lot of transactions that you do on a digital basis, be it an account opening, be it anything that you do around transactions and so on, that identity layer is thinning down. You can't only rely on the physical identity as an alone point. So we are going to talk about 2 or 3 other use cases that we have seen holding great promise in the industry. We are talking about a phone layer, basically intelligence that is tagged across to a phone number. Again, all of these use cases that we are going to talk about, these are silent authentication mechanisms, silent details mechanism that typically comes into play once an interaction, once a touch point happens. So that is what we are going to talk about from a phone risk, phone signal perspective, device risk, device signal perspective, IP intelligence, IP signal perspective. Okay? These are the pointers that we are seeing getting the institution ready for a digital economy and our ability to help sustain that entire trust promise that we are looking to survive on. Okay? What does this trust intelligence framework actually entails? We are talking about a couple of things here. Whenever a phone number, so phone number as you all would be using any kind of account that we open right now, before any identity fragment gets into the scheme of things, we are looking at phone number as the first verification touch point that you see, right? Phone number is the first detail that you enter in the entire app before you enter your name. That's the nature of any kind of onboarding that we are looking at right now. What happens if you can quickly check with this phone number how long back it was issued? If it was issued 3 days back, yeah, cause of concern for you. Basically, we are trying to identify what are the signals that will manifest into high risk, trust related issues for your entire onboarding, okay? So typically we are looking for vintage. We are looking for, does the name of the individual or the applicant who is coming into your entire ecosystem is matching with the name that is existent on the telco network, is existent on other places that this correlation is there, okay? We can also help you identify what are the typical calling patterns. In multiple such cases, what we have seen is there are a couple of phone numbers that we have come into the ecosystem, but they typically do not work 90 out of 100 days. They are just popping at specific points, do a multitude of transactions, and then go dead. Okay? So those kind of patterns we try to help identify, uncover. These are the things that can be used on a day-to-day basis for any kind of onboarding checks, risk signals, and so on. Device, what does a device paradigm means in this entire trust intelligence framework? We are talking about the moment anyone logs in, touches your entire ecosystem from a device, be it a web browser, be it a mobile phone, be it an app, be it a mobile web browser, the first interaction or touch point that happens, can you identify risk associated with that particular device? What kind of risk? We are typically talking about, has this device ever been reported fraud in the entire world, somewhere or the other? Do we have this kind of intelligence? Can we utilize that? Okay. There are also multiple such cases that we talked about bot attacks. We have seen a multitude of attacks originating from screen sharing applications where there is a remote desktop that is typically set up that takes over the entire account and does all the transaction on behalf of the customer. Okay? So those kind of attacks, typically botnet-driven attacks, we help identify using very specific intelligence built into the entire signal. So these signals are typically exposed across for any onboarding application. Okay? Other layer in this entire ecosystem is IP intelligence. Basically, whenever a touch point happens with the banking ecosystem somewhere or the other, it exposes across an IP that tells very specific telltale signs of that IP. Typically, it means a VPN or a proxy is being used while the customer might be saying that he is applying for the loan or he's doing the transaction from Delhi, which is his home location. But when you spoof or when you untangle that particular IP, you see that it is originating from Uganda. What do you do in those kind of cases? Okay? What is the riskiness of a particular IP or an endpoint into your entire system? Okay? Have you seen a fraud originating from that IP? Have you seen the risk score pertaining to that particular IP? That is what we are trying to. So these are all telltale signs which you can use whenever you are talking about a high velocity digital economy, because all of these are silent options that you can explore for assessing the risk of that endpoint as and when you are interacting with that entity. Okay. So this is what phone intelligence, we talked about this. This is just a second level deep dive. So your phone number currently holds much more information than what your typical identity card used to have. Okay. KYC is a static document that you can tag into, that you can explore into for a specific element, typically used for account onboarding. But a phone number is much more a dynamic variable that continuously changes based on how you are interacting with that entire channel. And this gets used in multitude of ways in your entire risk assessment. Okay? So this is one of the very prominent use cases, and we have some classic use cases. So a large bank integrated this in their entire solution, and they saw that there is a 4x uplift at the point of account onboarding for risk assessment when they are using a phone intelligence variable as well, or signals as part of their entire ecosystem. So we have seen this. Another one, device risk. So this is the second part of the entire trust promise that we are, trust intelligence framework that we are bringing out. Device risk, it uses multitude of layers of risk protection for the entity in question. Okay. The first one typically is trying to look at if there are any kind of endpoint-centric vulnerabilities that we are seeing. So typically, you would see, for an example, multitude of applications coming from a particular device. When you try to untangle it, you would identify that it is a rooted or a jailbroken Android device. And it has been generating 15,000 applications within a span of 3 days, 5 days, using forged identities. Okay? So those kind of use cases, we help untangle you at the first point. So that riskiness we can help identify. There are other layers as well, which typically looks at consortia model. So if anywhere in the world, if these kind of devices are reported, how do you identify it at the first point and prevent your entire ecosystem from vulnerabilities of that nature? So this is what we do. We have seen some great promise around this as well. Banks, institutions, specifically financial services company, when they are integrating with a solution like this for the first time, it helps them identify or de-risk 80% of the entire frauds because of device-related vulnerabilities getting identified at the first shot. Okay. I'll move on. So this is the IP intelligence solution. Very specifically, whenever any new IP comes into picture, basically the moment you make an internet connection with any entity, it exposes across an IP. And that has got very specific telltale signs of what the origin, the intent of that user seems to be. So if an application is coming and it seems to be originating from Indore, Madhya Pradesh, based on the IP geolocation piece, it looks all good, hunky-dory so far. The moment you start to peel the layers and you identify that, okay, there is a VPN lagged in, there is a Tor exit point logged in. Typically, these are telltale signs that something is not okay with that entire transaction. You need to do advanced risk assessment, enhanced due diligence on those networks, touch points, and so on. So that is what we help you across. There are also a lot of details on spoofing that we have seen. Basically, someone tries to spoof where they are originating from, what their connection line seems to be, for getting undue advantage, for getting undue access to your entire ecosystem. So that is all, these are the various signals that we help identify in the entire digital layer. So these are the major solution spaces or the framework that we were talking about, essentially this is what we are trying to aim for. You had that identity layer, which was the core of any customer's existence in your entire accounts or in your entire ecosystem. We are trying to create a digital intelligence, a digital trust core using these particular specific solutions or entities, which will bind together for a KYC, for a customer. There is also a digital trust score or a digital framework score for that particular entity in your entire ecosystem. Okay? So that is what we are trying to create. Basically, it would help you identify fraud rings very effectively. The moment you see a particular IP or a particular device originating multiple types of transactions, activity in your ecosystem, consistent with a natural user, but all of them originating from a single device, a single IP, and so on, yeah, that is a telltale sign. That is where your sixth senses should get high, and you should be doing enhanced due diligence on those entities. Okay? So this is what we are trying to do. Another perspective that I would like to call out, time is of the essence right now in this digital economy angle. Okay? What we are seeing about is all of these telltale signs you should be able to service across in less than 200 milliseconds. In an ideal world, 100 milliseconds. Because you don't want to raise any friction in the consumer journey. The consumer never gets to know that this kind of assessment is being done in parallel for his safety, for his safeguard. Okay? So all of this, the entire digital trust intelligence framework runs on real-time rails. It needs to run on real-time rails for you to be able to assess what is the riskiness of this particular transaction activity in your entire ecosystem. Okay? This is what we have seen in a real-time example. We ran this entire framework for a large BNPL player in India. We saw, and this BNPL player was an Indian entity, was working in Indian market for Indian customers. Within roughly around about 20 million applications that we analyzed through, we saw transactions or applications originating from 160 plus countries. What is the sense, purpose? You identify. Okay? So these are the findings that we were able to identify from this particular case study. We saw some 40,000 devices were identified that were used for opening 10 plus accounts each. Okay? In fact, they were complicit 6,600 devices using those kind of compromised entities that were used for opening up 55 plus accounts each. Fraud rate in those accounts that were detected and identified and prevented was roughly around about 14%. Okay? When we analyzed the phone signals around on those entities, we identified multitude of phone numbers that were opened up in the last 1 month with no calling pattern, with no risk signal related to any regular phone number behavior pattern. Okay? The overall outcome of those 20 million applications, 1 million applications were flagged for review. Okay? 19K devices were identified to be compromised and were reported so that further transactions from those devices cannot be entertained going forward. So this is the kind of risk signal that a large BNPL player was able to identify. And again, all of this is running on the real-time basis as and when any application is coming in. Before the entire application goes through, you have these risk assessments on your hand. Okay? I would just like to reiterate, what does it mean if you're looking to build trust at scale? In the digital economy, you need to have trust factor binded in with all transactions, all activities. And this needs to be at a real time. This needs to be real time. It needs to be data driven, where you can do checks and balances at each time. What is your flow through rate? How you are looking to optimize it for any kind of risk factors. And this needs to be on a continuous basis. This not going to be a batch-based check that you can do at the end of the day or at the end of the month, which will help solve these problems. These needs to be done immediately at the point of the transaction that you are servicing. Okay? This is also your competitive advantage. Gone are the days when more security meant more friction. All of these are the challenge benefits that you will see. Effectively, intelligence runs invisible this entire layer. Okay, there are no friction. Good users fly through instantly. There are no restrictions around for good users. Fraud stops at the door. Effectively, I'm not even going to let them into my door for me to be protective. Okay. These are the key takeaways. Again, a summarization of what we have done. Trust needs to be engineered. You need to be providing across a solution that is built for the purpose that you are trying to drive at. Speed without trust increases the risk. Think of it as a bullet train that is working at high speed. If you don't have high-grade controls, high-grade brakes, it means risk at an unfortunate level. The intelligence must be multi-layered. Real-time decisions are non-negotiable in this. Okay, and trust me on this particular point. Trust will be a growth multiplier. The moment you have the right controls built into the entire application, that will ensure that you are programmed for success in your long-time journey. Okay, yeah, this is what we wanted to call it. Trust is the digital currency that will define winners in the high-velocity digital economy. That is a quick one. Yeah, thanks again for your time today. We are TransUnion. We have a booth outside. Please visit us at any point of time during the day. We are available throughout the day, and we can discuss this in further detail.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. I think a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Anurag Anand from TransUnion INDAS on that wonderful presentation. And yeah, I would like to reiterate what Anurag said. TransUnion and the entire team have a wonderful setup of booth with their team there. So please do take out your time during the networking sessions. Do visit them, where Anurag and his team would be more than happy to go and help you out with their solutions and products and offerings. And now, Anurag, I would request you to kindly stay on the stage for a few minutes longer. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome on stage Mr. Mayur Mittal from Hero Housing Finance. Mayurji, if you could kindly do the honors of felicitating our expert speaker here.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Anurag Anand, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause once again for that wonderful session on building trust in a high-velocity digital economy. We heard Anurag for the last 20 minutes on that fantastic session. Thank you so much, Anurag, for that wonderful session, and thank you, Mayur, for doing the honors as well.